Hello everyone, welcome to another Monitoring Power Hour webinar. I hope you're all doing well. Looks like we've got quite a big crowd today and more joining as we speak, so that's great. Welcome to everybody joining, whether you've watched many of these or this is your first one. We appreciate it. Throughout the whole webinar, if you have any questions, comments, thoughts, feel free to use the chat window in the GoToWebinar panel. And Christian and myself will answer those questions and comments as we go along. If you at any point you have trouble hearing us or you can't see the presentation, let us know as well, and we'll make sure to handle that as soon as possible. All right. So with that, let's get into the topic for today. So primarily, we're talking about what's new with the Trimble monitoring team and what we've been up to. So first introduction of who's presenting to you today. So myself, Riley Smith. I'm based in the United States. I'm a land surveyor by trade, but I have been working at Trimble for around 4 years, and I work on the monitoring team as product marketing manager. And today I'm joined by Christian.
Hello everyone, my name is Christian Abendschein. I'm product manager for the automated monitoring part of our portfolio. I'm based out of Munich in Germany, and yeah, I've been with Trimble for like 10 years.
Awesome. All right, so today we're going to start by covering what the Trimble monitoring portfolio looks like. For those of you who are new to the Trimble monitoring family, we'll introduce all the different components and what we offer in terms of automated as well as semi-automated monitoring. And then we'll dive into the meat of the presentation, which we're going to start with what's new in the upcoming T4D version 6.2. And Christian will go into some live demonstrations of the awesome new features in the software. As well, we'll look at Trimble Access Monitoring, our semi-automated based monitoring software for the field, and what will be coming new in version 1.1.3. And then we'll end off the webinar with some resources and what's next, and some additional information for anyone who wants to find out more. So feel free to ask those questions as we go along, and we'll answer them throughout the webinar, but we'll also save some time at the end in case there's a lot of questions and everyone wants to wait till then. So, all right, well, let's start with talking about Trimble monitoring. So it's all about automating movement detection and bringing that confidence. So whether it's detecting movement in a dam, a building, on a landslide, anything like that, it's all about detecting that movement in an automated fashion. So a little bit about the Trimble monitoring team. So it really started with the Geotomator for those who've been in the industry for quite a long time, and that technology coming into the Trimble family. And so over 20 years of automating, especially optical systems, total stations, and automating the data capture from those. With our automated monitoring systems, we have over 1,000 installations over the lifetime of the business, and all across the globe in various countries. And those projects range from a single total station, like you see behind me, to multiple instruments, GNSS, total stations, geotechnical sensors, and the whole gambit of monitoring devices. And we even have several sites that have been in operation, continuously monitoring for over 15 years. And on top of that, we have a whole distribution network, the Trimble Geospatial Distribution Network, across the world with over 100 distributors providing local support and servicing. So whenever you need a calibration or you need new batteries, whatever it might be, there's always a local distributor to help you out. So really, what's our Trimble monitoring advantage? And we focus on really three key things. The first being focusing on our customer success. So it's a monitoring project isn't just installing the sensors and letting it monitor. There's a lot to designing the right monitoring system, installing it the proper way, setting it up and configuring it properly, and ensuring everything's set up so you can have the longevity and confidence to know that the system will be working throughout it. And our 24/7 support and installation team is really one of the keystones to this to the team, and backed by the distribution network, which I was talking about before, it really creates that whole idea of customer success and making sure whenever monitoring system is installed that it's installed the right way and the right system is designed. The sensors in the system are all about durability. They need to last in all conditions and monitor for many years, whether it could be a monitoring for a week project, but it could also be monitoring for 15 years or more. And so we want everyone to know they have the confidence in the systems, the hardware to be durable in all of those conditions, whether it's rain, snow, sun, shine, whatever it might be. And that really helps not only the confidence that the sensors will keep collecting data, but also minimizes project downtime. You don't want to have devices failing while they should be monitoring. And then the last is about automating and expanding services. So I sometimes look at movement monitoring anyways as surveying but repeated. And how can you do that in a more efficient and productive way? Well, it's all about automating the data capture and the reporting and the analysis. And that's what T4D and the whole system bring to monitoring professionals. And so that leads us to the monitoring family. So we cover all of the geospatial side of data capture, so that being your total stations, your GNSS levels, and capturing those absolute or relative positions. Also coupled with, on the left side, our geotechnical portfolio, which includes a wireless sensors coupled with wireless gateways, wireless data loggers, and a 4G gateway to collect all that data. So you have data from all the geotechnical and the geospatial sensors all funneled in together into T4D, which is the automated monitoring platform where you can schedule all of your reporting, your analyses, and alarms to make sure that all of that movement is reported on properly and you have clear visibility on site. All right, so with that, we covered a little intro to Trimble monitoring family. I'll take a quick pause to see if there's any initial questions. So there was a question about, is this going to be recorded? And yes, it is going to be recorded. So you'll all receive, if you signed up for the webinar, you'll receive an email within 1 or 2 days after this is, after we finished, and it'll have the recording there. So feel free to rewatch it or send it to any of your colleagues as well. All right. So with that, I'm going to kick it over to Christian to walk us through what's new in T4D.
Thanks, Riley. So,
there you should have Center rights now.
Right, can you see my slide?
Yeah, you might want to full screen the presentation just because all your browser is still showing.
Oh, here we go. Okay, so
can still see it. Still see all your browser. It doesn't look like anything changed.
Really? Okay.
At least on my side, anyways.
Better now?
No, we might be sharing a different screen too. I'm not sure. I'm seeing Chrome.
How about now?
There you go. Awesome. Good to go.
Okay. Strange. Still see the same. Anyhow. So yeah, I'm happy to talk about the news of Trimble 4D Control version 6.2. Before I will do so, let me talk about what T4D is at all, what T4D is about. For those of you who may not be familiar with T4D, maybe there are some attendees who have never worked with T4D. So T4D is a software that enables automated movement detection with confidence for surveying and construction professionals, supporting informed decisions about infrastructure. I mean, this is probably the shortest definition of T4D that you can think of. And T4D really offers flexible purchase and deployment options to handle complex monitoring projects and requirements. And it really combines all kinds of different sensor types within one single platform. On top of that, it offers a lot of different processing capabilities, network adjustments, for example, processing of total station data together, of multiple total station data together. You can run several real-time processing engines, post-processing engines with different configurations. It is also possible to combine GNSS data with total station data, for example. So all of this is supported by T4D. And of course, the web application of T4D also offers a comprehensive visualization capabilities and also reporting functionalities that allows you to meet your monitoring requirements. So this is T4D, and now what's new, what's coming up? We will have a new release of T4D version 6.2 next week, next Tuesday on July 27. This release of T4D is going to happen together with a new firmware version release of the setup M1, which is version 4.2. So that's an important information because you need to have the firmware version 4.2 installed on your setup M1 in case you connect to a total station through the setup M1, of course. And what are the highlights of T4D version 6.2? So first of all, we will introduce a new software edition, a T4D Geotechnical software edition. I still have one more slide with additional information on this one. The next one is the alignment-based monitoring, which will cover the biggest part of my demo later on. A new site setup / video dialog is available with version 6.2, next to other enhancements that make T4D much better. I hope that I can also show all of these during the live demo later on. But for example, we have a new user role recipient, but more information to follow. All right, so let me give you some information on the new T4D Geotechnical edition first, because this is something I will not cover during the live demo. So the new T4D Geotechnical edition is for automated monitoring users utilizing geotechnical only setups, geotechnical only sensors, basically. The new edition is for geotechnical only workflows. As I said, it streamlines the installation of this kind of installation. It is priced accordingly, where no geodetic processing is required. Geodetic processing basically means there are no total stations and no GNSS receivers necessarily required. And it also supports all known geotechnical sensor related features of T4D, like the charting, analysis, alarming, and project management functionalities, for example. And on top of that, it also integrates directly with the Trimble Geotechnical IoT. So you may have heard about the recent announcement where we expanded our geotechnical portfolio. T4D supports the wireless laser tilt meter, for example, wireless triaxial tilt meter, and also the 4G gateway. If you now look at the entire T4D offering, which so far existed of T4D Field, T4D Intermediate, and T4D Advanced, the Geotechnical Software Edition further increases the flexibility, and overall T4D offers the right software edition for every monitoring project. Right, so you can see the definition of each of the available software tiers, and T4D Geotechnical is a new one, as I said. Of course, for all of them, you can add additional sensor nodes. This applies to total stations, GNSS, and geotechnical sensors. So this is the same concept for the T4D Geotechnical edition, same as with the other editions. All right, so now let's go into the new key feature of T4D version 6.2, which is the so-called alignment-based monitoring. Alignment-based monitoring, what does it mean? So if you think about a tunnel, for example, a road, a railway, bridges, or a dam, so basically any monitoring object that has a curved geometry, this is a very useful feature. Why is that? Because if you think about a movement, like 1 centimeter movement in the northing direction of the set coordinate system, that may not tell you a lot without further calculation, or at least without giving it additional thoughts, right? So the interpretation and also the analysis of the data is way more meaningful and easier to understand if the values are, for example, perpendicular to a dam wall, if you think about a dam, or like here in this example, a road, or for example, a tunnel. So you're really interested in the movements along the monitoring object or perpendicular to the monitoring object. And as of T4D version 6.2, it is now possible to calculate station, offset, and vertical values from northing, easting, and elevation values. In other words, instead of delta northing, delta easting, and delta height, T4D can now also produce results in delta station, delta offset, and delta vertical. How do you get there? It's already outlined here. Upload alignment, associate positional sensors. So this is exactly what I would like to demo now, what I would like to show it to you. So I will jump to my monitoring system. I hope you can still see my screen. Riley,
Yep.
Are there any questions so far?
No questions so far. Good to go.
Okay, perfect. All right, so let me explain how you can get to the alignment-based values. So maybe first some explanation on my setup. I use a real alignment in a second that has been used, or that is still being used, by the Grand Paris Metro project. You will also see it later on the maps page. I have configured about 40 positional sensors, prisms basically, that are close to the alignment and for which I get data from on a regular basis. This is all configured already in T4D server, and therefore I will start in T4D web right away. So as I would like to show you how to do it from scratch, I will first go to the project management of T4D, which you see here. And as a very first step, I will just create a new project. And the new project, let me call it demo webinar, maybe. Demo webinar. The time zone is okay. The unit preference is also okay. Degree, meter, Celsius, so that's all fine. That's all looking good. And then I can save this project. What you can see here is the coordinate system, France, RGF 93. So this is exactly because I'm using an alignment from the Grand Paris Metro project, as mentioned. And this is the coordinate system setting of T4D server, which is taken over by this project at T4D web. So now I'm in the new project demo webinar, and the very first thing I need to do is I need to upload an alignment file. Under Project Manager, there is a new section called Alignments. And in this section, you will be able to upload an alignment file. The alignment itself, the alignment definition must be available, or must be, needs to be done outside of T4D. So this is not part of T4D. Outside of T4D means, for example, in another software package like TBC, right? And we have a couple of supported formats. So you see RXL is supported, TXL, LAND XML, and also DXF. So in my example, I have stored the alignment locally. I use the DXF format, and when I open it, you see I can submit it. When I submit it, it is uploaded, and we're doing some validation. For example, does the file only contain one alignment, which is a requirement? or does it maybe not contain any alignment at all? Is the format correct? And so this is validated when you upload it. Now it's successfully uploaded, and I can give this alignment a name that is later on used in T4D. So I call it, just let me call it webinar demo as well, just to keep it consistent. You can change the color of your alignment. Why is that? Also the stroke width. This is because you can visualize your alignment on the maps page of T4D, and depending on what color setting you choose here, it will be represented in this color later on. All right, so then I can save this alignment definition or this alignment information, webinar demo. And in the next step, it is pretty similar, very similar as you may be used to. So you can now create positional sensors. Of course, I do not want to create them one by one. I will add multiple sensors. So I add target displacement sensors because this is what I have configured on the T4D server side. If I want to associate, that's the main purpose here. So it's not only about adding positional sensors. At the same time, you are able to associate your positional sensors to an alignment that has previously been uploaded. So in my example, it's about terrestrial displacements, and I enable the position alignment data type. So this is required, and you may have noticed. So on top, suddenly the alignment tab shows up. I go to next. My data source is an integrity monitor, of course, of T4D server. The configuration name is alignment. And here is a list of all the targets I have available. So as said earlier, it's about 40 targets. And the system has been running for a couple of days, for some time already. So that's why I will also import the history. And then on the next tab, this is the important part here. So here you can, again, associate your positional sensors to the alignment. Webinar demo, so this is exactly the name that I have defined earlier. And once this is done, I go to summary. You see it's 38 sensors, almost 40. And then I can click on save. So now you see all the sensors are added. It takes a moment. They're added and at the same time associated with the alignment. Maybe until this is done, let me go back to the home screen of T4D Web and also make sure I select the right project up here. So the project is called Demo Webinar again. And let me see if I already see some sensors in here. Yes, there are already some sensors here. But before I go ahead, I would like to show you one thing. So you can, I don't want to change this now, just for your information. You can also show absolute measurements for your alignment. Absolute measurements means like you get a station value of 2365, for example, right? The station of your alignment. So you can change this here if you want to. And that's possible. I leave it with relative measurement because it's easier to compare with also your delta 2D delta height of your, like the values that you get out from your coordinate system definition. So I leave it with relative measurements. Relative measurements, just for those of you who are not sure what it means, relative measurement refers basically to the difference between the absolute measurement and the measurement at the reference date. In my example, the reference date is the first observation that came in. This is also something you can define in here. So you see it's the oldest available observation. So that's my reference, both for my alignment-based values, but also for delta north, delta east, delta height. So let me go back to the sensors and check if something is available. Yes, it is. So you see down here, it always shows the latest observations. And now there are delta station values, delta offset, delta vertical, next to delta height and delta 2D. So I mean, it's quite obvious, right? But just to emphasize this again, so delta station, delta offset, delta vertical, the alignment-based values, they are calculated on top, right? They do not replace the delta easting, northing height values. So you can, I mean, it's all configurable. You can decide what you want to display, both here, also on the maps page, etc. But it's both available. Okay, so now let's have a look at the maps page, because I think this is a very interesting part. So here you see this is my these are my points, and I can now enable the webinar demo alignment as well. You see this green line, green because I defined it should be green, and I have a bunch of points for a section for a part of this alignment, right? So now if I can do a couple of things. I can, for example, enable displacement vectors. So if I click on the displacement vectors, you see what's the vector size, and if I click on the icon, you also see the latest observations, for example. What else can you do? You can, for example, enable a heat map, a 2D heat map. So here you see this is in red. So I have an alarm here, or I got an alarm earlier because there was some movement. So for example, the vector size is 3.5 centimeters almost. Delta offset is 3.2 centimeters. So that's why it is red. I will come back to this later because I will also create an alarm definition. The vector size is actually something you can configure up here. By default, it is the scale is based on the largest displacement that came into the system so far. So, all right. So anyhow, you can visualize everything. You can visualize your alignment. You can visualize your sensors, and I guess this is what I wanted to show you. If we now go to the charts page, so let me just pick one of the sensors. This one, for example, it's a big date range. It's almost 1 week. So let me zoom in so I get something more meaningful. You see, this is my information here, my values. I will disable delta height and delta 2D, so only delta station, delta offset, and delta vertical is left on my chart. And now if I, for example, hover over this value here, which is a delta station value, you also see in this box the absolute value. I'm not sure if you can recognize, but the absolute value of this station is 2422.31. So this is the absolute station information referring to the alignment, right? All right. What else? Scatter plot. I mean, alignment-based. Sure.
Before you continue, Christian, maybe a question, and I apologize if you covered this already, but what alignment formats can T4D support? Design files.
I can quickly go back here. So if you want to upload an alignment, here the files are also mentioned in here. So it's RXL, TXL, LandXML, and DXF.
Perfect. If for anyone who doesn't know, the RXL and TXL are Trimble formats. RXL is the road corridor design format, which you would use with Trimble Access roads, and TXL is the tunnel design format. And LandXML and DXF are quite industry normal design file formats. Cool.
Right. Okay. I hope this answered your question, right? So,
for sure. Yeah. Thank you.
Let me go back here because I also want to show you the scatter plot information. So the scatter plot is basically a top-down view, and you can select different axes. So by default, it's delta station and delta offset. Also here, the time range is quite big. It's 1 week. So I will just zoom in a little bit so that I have maybe data for 1 day. Okay, I need to reload. So here you see there's a lot of data, delta station versus delta offset. And the nice thing is, if I now switch between position alignment and position terrestrial, see what happens. You can basically see how we calculated the values, how we rotated the coordinate system, if you will. Like we rotated the coordinate system into the monitoring object based on the alignment information. And that's something you can nicely see here. So if I switch back again, this is
cool.
looks like
There was
again.
a question that came in from Julian. He said,
Sure.
so you showed displacement vectors parallel to the alignment. Can you explain what those displacement vectors mean? I think that's in the maps view.
Yeah, the displacement vectors, they are still based on delta northing and delta easting. So this is not, you can see I can go back maybe to the maps page. So here, let me enable this again. And if I go back, I think this is what Julian meant. So
Yeah.
here, right. So if you look here, so it shows the vector size, but again, this is based on the northing and easting values related to your coordinate system. So this is not derived from the alignment-based information, but you can see the alignment-based information if you click on the sensor icon itself. Okay.
Yeah, regardless, it would still show the same direction of movement, whether it was in absolute coordinate system of some sort or station coordinate system. The movement direction would be the same. I guess it's dependent on how you want to see your movement broken down into components.
Exactly. And I mean, again, what you see here, this is all configurable. But the displacement vector, to answer your question, so this is the vector size is derived from northing easting. Okay. Okay, so scatter plot, I think this was, there you can really see what we do with the alignment-based monitoring. This is really nice. Of course, you can also use your alignment-based data with an analysis. So if you create an analysis, you can also, I don't know, for example, compare delta offsets for 5 sensors. This is something I will skip for now because I would like to rather focus on the alarms because there is something I also want to show you. So if I add an alarm definition here, let me call this one. Yeah, let me call it again webinar demo, and I'll save it. So I'm not sure if everyone in the call has already created an alarm definition in T4D. So it's always the same sequence. First, you do an alarm definition, and then you can add alarm conditions. This is what I will do now. So one of the alarm condition is, for example, I will use position alignment, of course. I will select certain sensors. You can also say all sensors of the same sensor type, but I would like to select just some of them. Maybe I will use 1, 11, 13, 15, and 16, so 5 sensors. Okay. And the value column, so this is what T4D evaluates against. I will select offset for now. And then I go to the evaluation tab. There are different options. Details, I will leave it with this setting here. Absolute and relative, as I was looking at relative measurements, I will also select relative measurements here. And as said, the system has already been running for some time, so let me use a value from 2 weeks ago as the reference value. So here I can set the thresholds. There are different severity levels in T4D. My attention threshold I will set to 5 millimeters. The warnings threshold maybe to 1 centimeter, and the alarm threshold to 105 centimeters, right? And I do not want to include a filter on the standard deviation. There shouldn't be a, no data alarm is also possible. Trigger, threshold, heat map, all of this is possible, but for simplicity, I will just click on done because this is what I wanted to show you. So here, this is my alarm definition. And again, you can add as many conditions as you want. You can also add an alarm condition for a temperature sensor or for a GNSS sensor or for any geotechnical sensor, and you have different merge operands. You can say, please only trigger an alarm if all of my alarm conditions occur or exceed a threshold, or in my example, it's by default set to where, but as I have only one alarm condition, it doesn't really matter. I will leave it that way, and then I can enable now the alarm. And here, that's also something which is new in T4D. We have added some logic when enabling the alarm definition, which allows you as a user to suppress notifications from being sent out. So why is this useful? It is especially useful if you think about an existing alarm definition that you disable for modification purposes, right? And the alarm, when you disabled it, it was, for example, in a warning status or in an alarm status. Then you do some modifications. And then when you enable the alarm again, it would theoretically immediately send out a notification to all of the alarm recipients. And now you have the opportunity or the possibility again to suppress these notifications. If you say yes, they will be sent immediately, and if you say no, they won't be sent. So this way you can avoid that an alarm notification is sent out twice, for example. And if I now go back to my maps page, you see the icon here is already in a red status. Let me zoom in again. So here you see my sensors and my alignment. And these two sensors are in an alarm state because the evaluation against delta offset provided as a result that it exceeded my alarm threshold of 105 centimeters. So that's why these two sensors are in an alarm status, right? Okay, so, and then another thing I want to show you, want to demonstrate is the reports functionality. The reports functionality, of course, in terms of alignment-based monitoring, because this also includes, or you can also include station offset and vertical values to your positional sensor readings report. To do so, I will quickly jump to another system. The reason for this is because I had some issues with sending out alarm emails, but it doesn't really make a difference, right? I can also use the system here. What I will do is I will create a positional sensor readings report, and I will also call it again webinar demo. And so here I can also associate recipients. Before I do so, maybe some more words on the reporting functionality of T4D, in case you're wondering what this is about. So in T4D, you can schedule reports, different type of reports. We have report types on the system status, for example, on logs that were captured by the system, or like this one, like the positional sensor readings report, where you can really export a XLS file on a scheduled or on a regular basis. Before I continue, I would like to send this report to myself, but also to someone else. To do so, yeah, let me quickly go to the accounts page here.
Before you go on, maybe a couple questions on the alignment-based monitoring, Christian. The first one from Mark is there ability to change the terminology from station to chainage? in T4D?
Not with version 6.2. Certainly something we can think about in the future, that you can somewhere change it in the configuration page where you can customize the name. But with version 6.2, it's station.
Yeah, that's a good one, Mark. I agree. It's kind of a term that's used different or interchangeably around the world. So
exactly, it depends on who you ask, right?
Yeah, it depends what country you're from and who you are. So yeah, no, that's a good point for us, Mark. So we appreciate the feedback. The another question that was asked from Ruli was about can the alarm definitions you're showing in T4D, can those be set up to sound an audible alarm or a siren?
Yes, you can also run a batch file. So if an alarm is triggered, you can run a batch file, and the batch file in turn can trigger a siren, for example. That's possible. And we also have some installations doing that. Yes.
Very cool. Awesome. It looks like all the questions for now.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Riley. So the reason why I'm in the accounts page is because I would like to show you another new feature of T4D. We have introduced a new user role, which is called recipient. And what is this new user role about? So the recipient user role allows you to get reports without the need to accept any invite for T4D Web, for example. You will not be, or you will not receive any other system notifications which starts with the invite to T4D Web or any other possible system notifications as said. So it just simplifies the access to monitoring reports. You can simply, every administrator of T4D can simply add an email address, choose the role recipient, and this person, this stakeholder will then receive a report if it is configured in the report section, of course, which is something I will show you in a minute. So I will add a new user, and Ryder, I think it makes most sense if I add you. So I'll add your email address.
Sounds good.
RileySmith@trimble.com, and I select again the user role recipient. Yeah, disable notifications. And so this is typically something you must enable if you want to receive notifications. But if I disable it and select the user role recipient, you will still receive the reports. So I will register you. Of course, I still need to type in first name and last name. And then I can register you. Okay, so now here you go. You are now set up as a recipient user, and you may recognize there is also no key icon because you cannot reset your password as a recipient user. You will never access T4D Web when you have this user role, but still you receive reports. All right, so let me go back to the report section. Okay, so let me add this positional sensor readings report once again. Let me call it webinar demo. And here you can specify the recipients of a report. I have already selected myself, and now Riley should show up here as well. Yes, it does. You see, question Riley. It's perfect, and I will save it. Here as well, I can do a lot of things. So I can, for example, select the sensors which I would like to include. So I select as a data type positional sensors, and yeah, for example, I select this one, and this one, just 3 of them, right? Specific sensors. I'm not interested in velocities and specific data or output settings at this stage. Presentation is also okay. Reference date, that's fine. The interesting part is really the report columns, and that's what I want to show you. Here you can select also delta station or maybe delta JNIH later on. delta offset and delta vertical. Maybe I will also add sensor name and the observation date. Right, so I move this upwards here, so that's the right sequence. So I have 5 values, 5 report columns in my report later on. And I will click on done. Right, and then let me go into the edits. So let me go back here. Let me go back here a couple of days because I'm not sure which stage this is exactly. So let me say I want to see the data for the last 7 days. You see it's completely configurable, days, hours, and I select the last week, and then I click on save. Here I can also have a preview. So it should be created in a second. Here we go. So here, these are my sensors I have selected. The observation date, this was the second column, and I see delta station, delta offset, delta vertical for these sensors for different timestamps. Again, completely customizable, but this is what I did. And then I can also run it now, which means the report is generated and an email is being sent out. You see, generating report is sent. Perfect. Okay, so now relays should actually receive an email. We can check this in a second, but before we do so and before I hand over to you, maybe I can also show you some news on the T4D server side. Before I switch to T4D server, not sure, Riley, are there any questions, new questions?
Yeah, there's a good question I think we can answer right now from Ruli. Can SMS notification in T4D use my local provider? Yeah, in my country. And so the example was Indonesia.
For the SMTP server, you mean?
For SMS notification from like an alarm.
Yeah, we have a couple of SMS gateways that we support, or SMS providers, basically. So we have support for ClickerTel at the moment, for MessageBird, for SMS.sg, which is Singapore, and also for Twilio. So these are the 4 SMS gateway providers supported today by T4D. But of course, if there's a provider you would like to see here, where you think this is beneficial, just let us know, and we can think about it. Where did this come from? I don't know. Which country was it? Singapore?
Indonesia.
Indonesia. Okay. Okay. Yeah, it can be added, but maybe you can share more details, more information on the provider. Thanks.
And I think that's all for now. We'll keep it going, and there is a couple other ones, but we can answer those a little bit later on.
Sounds good. Okay. So let me go into T4D server. This is how T4D server looks like, right? You have your module configuration, and I would like to show you some use of the site setup dialog and also of the associated video dialog for this. I will open the site setup. There is already an existing configuration on the setup in one, which is used together with this S9 vision instrument. So this is why I select the second bullet point. Seems like there are some targets not measured at the moment. So that's why I select this one here, just for simplicity reasons. The site setup dialog opens up, and you may already see, if you're familiar with T4D, that there are some news. So one of the new things with T4D version 6.2 is the date and time information of the reference measurement up here. This can really vary from target to target. If you look, I scroll down. So it's from the same round measurement in this example, but you can basically update a reference measurement for a certain target at any time, right? And then the date and time will differ up there. This is really helpful information because it helps to assess displacements, in particular if the reference date differs from target to target, as I said. We also added the information on the measurement mode. Like here it's auto log because the distance is below 20 meters, but if I scroll down, I'm sure we will see fine log. Yes, here 37 meters, and then it shows fine log, for example. Down here, we now show the current horizontal and vertical reading of the total station. I think it's looking, yeah, it's looking down. Okay, it's looking downwards at the moment. Yeah, I think so. Or is it? Anyhow, we show the current reading here, and next to it also the compensator status. So this provides valuable information on the health of the instrument, and it can also explain why a certain point could not be measured, for example, or an entire round, because if the compensator is out of range, it's getting tricky. Another thing that we added is a turn to option. There is a new button here. Here you can also, first of all, you can select a certain target and you can turn your instrument to it, but you can also type in an horizontal and a vertical angle value and turn the instrument to this target. This is a great feature, in particular if you want to add new targets that may not be visible through the telescope of the instrument due to its distance from the instrument. And if you have the coordinates of the new target, you can also enter the horizontal and vertical angle values here. And last but not least, here you see the video dialog of this instrument or of the site setup dialog, where you can open the video stream of the S9 Vision, which is connected. And yeah, I'm not sure. I can maybe turn to one of the targets here just to see something meaningful. And 5. So this is a demo setup, a demo site we have in Nantes in France, thanks to Ben. So what I would like to highlight here is that we have added, first of all, the crosshair and also a point overlay. So you see this black dot and the point name, which is called npmon_5. So this gives you, first of all, a better orientation and understanding where the instrument is currently pointing to, of course. And it also makes remote site setups less error prone, let's say, because if you think you aim to a target and you measure it and you add it to your point list, but in fact it's a target that you have already added before because they may be close to each other or something like that, or in the same field of view of your camera. So this should really help to reduce errors. We also added click navigation. Click navigation means you can now click into the video stream and the telescope will move to exactly this point. Yeah, it's just a more intuitive instrument navigation, I think, than using instrument control buttons. And other than that, you see on the bottom right and on the upper left, we added 90 degrees and 180 degrees rotation buttons. You may be familiar with this from Trimble Access. It's exactly the same. And up here we have zoom buttons, zoom in, zoom out, also zoom max and yeah, zoom min buttons there. So yeah, this is something we added with version 6.2. I think it is a great addition to the site setup dialog and as well to the video dialog. Yeah, with that, I think I can close the site setup dialog again. Just two more things quickly. What is also back with version 6.2, if you do a right click on your data collector, so measure round is back again. This used to be not available with version 6.1 with the new data collector module. So this is back, or it's not back, it's actually now available first time with the new data collector module. And also we have the setup M1 diagnostics feature available now with the new data collector module. All right, and I think with that, Riley, I'm not sure if are there any further questions, because if not, I would like to hand over to you. Then you can maybe check if you have received positional sensor reports. report earlier, right?
Sorry, I was on mute. So there are some questions, but I think because we're getting to the top of the hour, we're almost out of time. Let's switch it over to Trimble. I'll cover Trimble Access Monitoring here with the few minutes we have. And maybe Christian, you can answer those questions while we talk about Trimble Access. But I did try to answer some of them. But feel free, everyone, please keep asking the questions. We really appreciate them. So
All
here
right.
I
Thank
will
you.
take over presenting. Give me 1 second. There's let me know you can see my screen. You should see the report that I did receive from you.
Nice, excellent. Yes, I can see it.
All right, so now I want to talk about Trimble Access Monitoring. So if you're not familiar with Trimble Access Monitoring, it is, well, it's based on our Trimble Access field software platform, but it's a specific app for semi-automated or campaign-based monitoring, where you might be making repetitive visits to the same site, whether that's every day, every week, every month, every year, and you're collecting that data for essentially the same set of targets, and you want to derive displacement or movement information from those measured targets. So that's what Trimble Access Monitoring is for, and it really helps automate that data collection and remove the need for a lot of the manual process, so turning the angles and actually pointing the instrument and so forth. And you may have noticed behind me the SX10 has been continuously running using Trimble Access Monitoring through the whole webinar as Christian's been talking. So what we'll do is cover some of the new features. And I do have some slides, but with the short amount of time we have left, I think it'd be better to show than to just show in slides. So I'll open up Trimble Access Monitoring and we'll cover that. So as I go through this, you should see the instrument move and measure as we get into monitoring. So here in the software, I have a simple monitoring setup in the office, and we'll go through how some of the new things in Trimble Access Monitoring. So if you're familiar with Trimble Access or not, so you essentially perform your site setup and you add all your targets and you start monitoring. So in this case, I have one backsite. It's very simple setup. I have a single backsite and I have 4 monitoring targets. Now, one of the new things that we added was the ability to sort and measure targets based on the azimuth. So essentially, instead of monitoring based on the target ID, now we're measuring in essentially a clockwise order, which is reducing the amount of time. So if you have 50 targets you're measuring from one setup, if the total station has to move from this direction to that direction to that direction, it may take a lot longer. So instead, we have an option to sort here at the bottom right. And now you'll notice that all the targets, the 4 site points that is, are sorted by azimuth values. So now they'll be measured in order. So it does reduce time, especially if you have a large set of targets. Now, if we keep going on, so press next, and this is the epoch screen where we define how many measurements we want to take. If we go to the options menu here at the bottom, we've got a lot of feedback, especially from users who have been familiar with our old platform and Survey Controller. We had the engineering pack. We've tried to bring on a lot of those good enhancements in the latest versions of Trimble Access to meet those suggestions from the users who were using Survey Controller in the past. So one of the good ones that we've implemented here is this repeat missing targets option. So I'll show how this works, but essentially, if you have a round, in our case, we have 4 targets. If that target is obstructed for whatever reason, maybe a vehicle drives in the way while you're trying to measure, it will skip that target if it can't measure it, and it will continue with the rest of the targets. And then at the end of the round, it will go back and measure any of those targets that it missed. So really useful if you have temporary obstructions. Now I'll show how that looks. Another thing that we've added is also this compare with option. So Traditionally, we would only be using the first epoch, so we'd be comparing all of the information to your reference epoch, or essentially your first measurement. But now we have the option to compare it with your previous epoch. So this is useful if you're trying to track movements, or let's say you had a big jump in movement and you want to compare to the latest one. So if your target's moved a significant distance, you don't want to always have the total station turning back to the original position. You want it to turn back to the previous epoch instead. So another useful option there. So let's do some monitoring. So I'm going to define some epochs. Just for time's sake, I'm going to define 2 epochs, and you'll see I've got some info on how long that's going to take. And I'll press next, I have my temperature corrections and so forth, press start. So what I'm going to do is show you how the repeat missing targets works. So once it starts monitoring, we'll see the status here on the right side, and I'll switch to the list. And we see there's a red line on the screen that's measuring to the monitoring points. Now, when I go to monitoring target 2 here in a minute, I'm going to cover it. It's just sitting next to me. So I'm going to cover it like it's a temporary obstruction, and I'll show you how it will skip. So you'll see the red line come around to monitoring target 2 here in a moment. And I'm just covering it so the total station can't see it. So it's going to try to measure for a few seconds. I think it's around 10 seconds it will measure. And once it determines that it can actually make that measurement, it's going to skip. And so you'll see there's an X, and it's going to now come back here and it will do the phase 2. And so you'll notice at the end of the round, it will measure that. So we'll let it finish there. Now, while it's doing that, another thing that we added is when you pause the monitoring using this button here in the bottom, you also have the option to change your atmospheric corrections. So for instance, maybe I put in the wrong temperature and I want to change my ppm value, I can do that. I can also select from the point list on the right-hand side and change any of my target information. So if, let's say for Mon 4, I want to go to edit, and I'll see in the edit screen that I can change my prism information, my constant, target height, as well as my working mode. Maybe for instance, it's really far away and I wanted to switch to long range fine lock instead of auto lock. I can do that as well. All right, and then when I'm ready to proceed with the monitoring, I just press continue, and the total station will start monitoring again. All right, so here it's going back to monitoring point 2, and you'll see that it went back and it performed the phase 2 measurement, or the phase 1 measurement, even though we missed it originally. So that's that option. So now we've collected some measurements. I'm just going to stop the monitoring for now. I can press cancel here and say cancel, and it shows me some of my deltas, but I can see here in this review screen my northern easting elevation displacement from what was measured in that previous epoch. Now, another great enhancement is we have introduced a new report type. So under the main menu under reports, this has been a big ask for a long time, so I'm happy we were able to add it to this upcoming version, and that's the CSV report of epochs. So I'll show what this looks like. I'll press OK. There's also these other reports that have been in Trimble Access for quite some time, but this is the new one here, the CSV export. So what this is doing is exporting the coordinates of all of the epochs, including the reference, for all of those points. So normally you would get that out in the job file or the JXL. You might bring it to TBC and do some further analysis. But for instance, if you want to do some analysis in a spreadsheet, or maybe you're going to bring the data into another software, this is a great report just to get out all of the epoch information. So I do have quite a lot of epochs. That's why it took a few seconds to generate. But you can see here's a simple spreadsheet, or CSV, I guess. It's opened up in Excel, but it has the reference coordinates, and then you see every epoch, it has the coordinates and as well as the timestamp for all of the different various epochs that I've measured. So there's quite a few here. And so you can take this report and you can do some analysis here in like, for instance, Excel, or you could do it in another software. All right. So now one of the other interesting things that we've done. If you're using the Trimble Sync Manager and you're syncing data between TBC and Trimble Access through Trimble Connect, one of the great things that we've introduced is under your project settings. So in Trimble Access, if you go to your project in the top right, there's this drop-down list under settings. There's an option to upload linked project files and exports and data. So now all of the monitoring exports, for instance, that CSV file that we just exported, all of those will be synced to Trimble Connect as well. So if I hit that button and then I go back here and say upload, I'll very quickly sign in with my Trimble ID. It'll take me a second here. And once I'm signed in with, oops, I jumped out of Trimble Access, sorry everyone. Once I'm signed in with Trimble, my Trimble ID, here we go. I press upload and it will load, and you see I've only got one report and it was the CSV file. So it uploaded there, and now I'll just jump to my web browser. And in Trimble Connect, you see that it uploaded that CSV file, as well as I had an HTML report there as well. So that's great. So if you need to interchange any of that data or reports between the field and office, or you're just using Trimble Connect to kind of centralize all of your data, now that's uploaded from Trimble Access Monitoring. Now, one of the last things, I'll get back into my job file, is if you're using Trimble Access Monitoring to do site setups for an automated system. So for instance, you're performing, you're measuring your targets and you're doing your site setup in Trimble Access and you're transferring it to T4D through either directly to T4D or through the M1. We do have this data exchange option in the main menu. And we've introduced a new configuration page. So if I go to setup M1 and I use the send site setup, you'll notice that now we have this configuration page where you put in your setup M1 credentials, but you can also add in some additional information such as that repeat missing targets option, as well as your scheduler. For instance, if I'm only measuring on certain days, I can select that information, and that will all be sent to the M1, which will take over doing the automated monitoring of the total station. Awesome. So those are the new enhancements in Trimble Access Monitoring. They're really excited for this new version. It's been built on a lot of feedback that we've gone out and gathered from everyone using the app and those who've been using previous versions, such that we used to have in Survey Controller as well. So we really appreciate that. And also would love to hear from those on the call who are currently using the app or maybe are interested in the app, what other things you'd like to see for both Trimble Access Monitoring and for T4D. So
Perfect.
With that,
there are some questions, Riley. I'm not sure.
Excellent.
Maybe I can. So there was a question about FineLog. Maybe I can quickly answer this also here. So is it possible to use a total station without FineLog in T4D? Just to complete the T4D section. This is not possible. So T4D version 6.2 still requires FineLog as the previous versions. The other thing is Joe did some investigation, on-the-fly investigation, and it sounds like Twilio may be supported in Indonesia as well as an SMS gateway provider. And the other question was about SX instruments. So T4D version 6.2 does not support SX instruments. And then on the bottom, Riley, the newest question, I think this is about Trimble Access Monitoring. So one of them is about if the temperature change will affect the already done measurements. I think you have updated the temperature during your demo, right?
Yeah. So the answer, I think that's Peter, that it will update the measurements, right? And that information is stored in the job file as well. So if you import it into Trimble Business Center, it will have that updated atmospheric data, so you can use that for further analysis as well. So there was another question about, can you output the data from Trimble Access Monitoring and open and display in T4D Control Server and Web? So short answer is yes. Christian, maybe do you want to elaborate on that one?
Yeah, you can you can do the, let's say, the initial site setup and preparation using Trimble Access Monitoring. And as Riley just explained, you can then transfer it to the setup M1, and through the setup M1, it is then also transferred to T4D. So that's one option, but you can also directly import a site setup into T4D. And you can also, on top of that, you can also import round measurements and process them in T4D, or let's say add this information to your permanently installed monitoring devices. So that's all possible. Yes, there is a nice integration between Trimble Access Monitoring and T4D.
Excellent.
Talking about the setup M1, maybe I can also cover the other question. When the new version of the setup M1 firmware will be available. So it will also be available on July 27. So this is all aligned. So the T4D release, Trimble Access Monitoring, and the setup M1 firmware version.
For sure. I think since we're a few minutes over time, maybe we'll end the webinar here, but we really appreciate all of the questions. If we didn't get to your questions, feel free to reach out to us, or we can reach out to you. Christian and I are always happy to talk to everyone doing monitoring out there, but really appreciate the questions. So we do this webinar monthly, and so stay tuned. There'll be an invite shortly sent out in the next weeks for a webinar coming in August. But for any of the previous webinars that we've done, you can find those recordings on the geospatial.trimble.com website. And as well, we have a whole YouTube page for Trimble Monitoring that covers a lot of how-to and tutorial videos for T4D, Trimble Access, and TBC monitoring as well. So I just want to say thank you, everyone. One last note, if you want to see a little bit more on automated monitoring, we do have several live monitoring demo sites on the Trimble Monitoring website. And so you can go on there and see T4D in action. I believe we have two systems right now on there, so you can go check that out. The other option too is reach out to your local Trimble distributor, and they'll be happy to set you up with a demo and talk more about monitoring as well. So with that, I think we'll call it the end today. So thank you everyone for your time and all the great questions that we got asked, and some good feedback as well on things that we could be doing for future versions.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you everyone. So take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.